On the Tuesday of last week, Pakistan Air Force carried out air strikes in Paktika province of Afghanistan, in what Pakistan called a response to a terror attack that had killed 16 of its soldiers in South Waziristan. The attack was claimed by TTP, or Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or what is called the Pakistani Taliban, as different from the Afghan Taliban that rules Kabul. In a way, they are not different. They are conjoined twins. The difference is a sleight of hand projected by Pakistan to buttress its own terror policy, which has in some ways come to bite the Paki generals in their own behind. The details have been covered since. Kabul regime summoned the Pak ambassador and charged that the airstrikes killed civilians, mostly women and children, and not terrorists as claimed by Pakistan. The Afghan Taliban were at least more honest than the Rawalpindi generals and did not say that only crows died in the airstrike. The statement also carried a threat. The Taliban won't sit back. There would be retaliation. Reports suggest that a big mobilization of Taliban fighters along the Afghan side of the Durand line in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is happening, and that a major action against Pak army might be on the cards. This was, incidentally, second cross-border airstrikes Pakistan carried out on Afghanistan territory in hot pursuit of its terrorists in 2024. A similar operation was carried out in the month of March, following another TTP attack that had killed 7 Pakistani soldiers. The audacity of that attack can be gauged from the fact that it was done during Ramzan. Gives you an idea of the kind of daggers drawn between Pak deep state and their proteges. By the close of this year, roughly 1,000 Pakistani lives, mostly of its security personnel, have been lost to terror attacks in its restive Baluchistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces along the western border with Afghanistan and Iran. The numbers were similar in 2023 and 2022. This is a classic case of chickens having come home to roost or roast. For decades, Pakistan cultivated terrorism as a state policy on Jammu and Kashmir, hoping to bleed India with 1,000 cuts. To its west, Pakistan became a willing partner of the United States in the Great Game, letting its territory, resources, and state machinery be used in the war against the Soviet Union for control over Central Asia from Afghanistan, of course for some dollars. The West promised to look the other way on Kashmir so long as Pakistan facilitated its objectives. Essentially, Pakistan became a willing rentier terror state, oblivious of the costs it would have to pay in the long run. The Pakistanis are now frequently playing the victim card, having been conscious accomplices in the game. Remember, the pictures of now jailed former ISI chief General Faiz in Kabul with a cup of tea in hand, a sense of achievement that Pakistan had finally got its elusive strategic depth. The euphoria was short-lived, as subsequent developments have shown. While the Taliban were birthed in the tribal frontiers of Pakistan in the 1980s, and their Pakistani counterparts only came up in the year 2007, in many ways they are joined at the rump. They believe in the same Deobandi ideology, same tribal code of honor, same interpretation of Sharia and Islam, and most importantly, from the viewpoint of Pakistan's security, do not believe in the Durand line as the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. I have given you a comprehensive historical account of the Durand line in earlier episodes. Suffice to say that n number of air raids by the PAF are not going to solve this issue for Pakistan. With the turmoil in Afghanistan, much through the 1990s and the 2000s, there was an influx of Afghan refugees into Pakistan. Pakistanis estimate their number at about 5 million. The trials and tribulations that these refugees go through in their daily lives provide Taliban with a fertile hunting ground for its recruits. The 2016 Peshawar Army school terror attack, in which Taliban terrorists killed 132 children, is an annual reminder to the Pakistani deep state of the costs of its follies. But alas, things do not change. Pakistan continues to push terrorism in Kashmir and refuses to make amends. Only that this time it might find itself between a rock and a hard place. The second Trump administration that takes charge later this month is packed with China hawks. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is a decorated veteran who served the American Special Forces in Afghanistan and the Middle East. He knows Taliban, he knows the Haqqani network, obviously he knows the umbilical links between the Pakistanis and the Taliban. Trump pick as Secretary of State Marco Rubio was sanctioned by China, giving you an idea of how hawkish he would be on Beijing. Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has also served in Afghanistan, howsoever briefly. Add to it Trump's public slamming of the handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal by the Biden administration. The whole point is that with its all-weather friendship with China and double-crossing terror policy on Afghanistan, Pakistan would be under intense scrutiny of the new Trump administration. With China impatient with Baloch insurgents frequently targeting Chinese assets and manpower along the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and America seeing Pakistan through the China prism and a regional troublemaker is the last thing the Rawalpindi generals would have wanted on their table. Things do not look good for Pakistan. And that's not the end of it. Rubio had recently launched a legislation in the US Congress to elevate India as a key US ally and has long-standing stance on limiting the US assistance to Pakistan over its support for terrorism in Kashmir. Waltz has been co-chair of the India caucus on the Capitol. Not to forget Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel as the possible new directors of National Intelligence and the FBI, and Pakistan is going to face some headwinds in Washington, D.C., as much on the Durand line. The wages of sin, as they say. Thanks for watching.